Hello there, and welcome to the Untitled Film Podcast with Callum and Johnny. I'm Johnny.
And I'm Callum.
And this is 2022, a year in review.
Can you keep that voice up for the entire thing?
Absolutely not.
And should we sing Auld Lang Syne?
You're not allowed to sing ever on this podcast.
Should old... Okay, I'm sorry, I'll be good.
Okay. Anyway, welcome to the Untitled Film Podcast review of the year, where we will be talking about some of the films we've reviewed this year,
Some of the news that we've looked at this year.
who we think are the best and the worst actors and actoresses.
Some exciting things to come up, and also some films that maybe we missed that we wished that we had talked about. Maybe some TV shows that we wished that we talked about. And lots of fun, scampy hijinks to be had. Larks and japes. Expect larks and japes.
And we have a bottle of wine while we do it. If you heard that.
And I
didn't sound very
apologise
good.
to Rob, who's going to have to be the person editing around our gulps and us putting it down ever so quietly on the table.
Like this.
Oh, you naughty boy.
Yes, anyway.
The naughtiest of the naughty boys.
Welcome. And with this episode, don't forget, as ever, to subscribe to our social media, where we will be posting really exciting updates about what's going on in the world of Callum and Johnny and podcasting.
All the films that we're going to review, maybe some questions, maybe some polls, other fun stuff. And he put his head right on the pop filter in order to take a selfie. So if you heard that, that's what that was. That's what that a really obnoxious clang was.
I'm trying to get you content, guys, for
Some hot new content.
hot content. Us with wine.
And as you're arsing about with that, I'll tell the people where they can find us. We're on
Go for it.
Untitled Film Podcast, one word, on Facebook and Instagram. And Johnny, are there any other social media pages where people can find us? Maybe one run by a narcissistic, evil, Mr. Burns-esque billionaire that is running their social media into the ground?
Well, we're recording this on the 14th of December. So you'll be hearing this after Christmas, just before New Year. And who knows if Twitter will still exist by then, because Elon Musk is now not the richest person in the world anymore. He's fired all his staff and his infrastructure seems to be crumbling. So we shall see. So possibly Twitter, but we don't use it because...
It's a fun toboggan
fuck that guy.
round. Yes, fuck that guy. Fuck him hard.
And fuck anyone who likes him.
Yeah,
So if you like him, don't listen to us again.
Yes.
Ever.
Bootlicks be gone.
Yeah. We don't care about ratings in this podcast. What we care about is
Clearly
quality. Anyway, on to the news. So we are going on a twist for the news this year. We are going to talk about the piece of news that has most excited us this year that we've talked about, and what it doesn't have to be necessarily next year, but probably things that will be coming out and happening next year. And Callum, what piece of news that you've talked about this year are you most excited about?
Fucking hate this one. No, that's not true. I'm sort of middle ground about it because I do like the story, but I don't like the director. There's a film going to be made about the British military unit in the Second World War called the Unit for Ungentlemanly Warfare. And if you don't know these guys, these were some celebrities. So you had Ian Fleming, you had Christopher Lee was a member, and they would seduce people. It's real spy stuff. Like, it's understandable where the idea for James Bond came from. He seduced people, get their money, get their support for the war, but they were also cold-blooded killers. And these are the guys that hid in trees. They weren't hiding with cameras, looking for files. They were ready to pop out of a tree with a knife between their teeth and slit the throat of a Nazi. So it's a really good story, but it's directed by Guy Ritchie, who's only marginally better than Zack Snyder. So it's a stylistic dummy. And I've liked some of his films. Others I've thought were complete pish. And I'm just hoping it's more in stylistic but fun, and not in stylistic but really bad, like his stuff with Disney, like the Aladdin live action remake, or some of the more obnoxious of his cockney gangster stuff, which can range between slightly fun to really annoying. So we'll see. But I'm excited about the story, but not about the director. So Johnny, when you've stopped taking video of me, I would like you to tell me what your most exciting bit of news is. I will not be shocked by the answer.
I'm really excited about Zack Snyder coming back to the DC Universe.
You son of a bitch.
I don't think Zack Snyder is even coming back to DC Universe. That is a lie. I'm most excited about 6 seasons in a movie.
Yes, I knew that. I knew it.
I'm very excited that they are making a Community movie, that the majority of the cast seem to come back, and that they are completing their mission of making 6 seasons in a movie, because they've made 6 seasons, and that was, I think the last one was like 2015 or something.
And it was a struggle to get to 6 seasons.
It was a struggle, but impressive. Like, I feel like how many shows actually get to 6 seasons?
Especially when they've been cancelled, picked up again, moved to a different studio.
Moved to streaming network.
Yeah, that like Yahoo.com streaming service. It wasn't even like one of the biggies. In fact, I don't think that Yahoo streaming is even a thing anymore.
No, they had that, and they had, I think, the Orville, which I think continued on something else afterwards.
It's
maybe.
Still going.
Was it the Orville? Something like that. It was some kind of sci-fi thing, and they were both very high budget, and they both destroyed Amazon Screen within one season because no one watched either of them. And somehow Amazon Screen thought spending £100 million or $100 million on 2 shows was a good idea.
That'll learn them.
Exactly. Anyway, but no, very exciting. I just want a little shout out as well for the fact that Spider-Verse is finally coming out next year, the new one.
Yes, very exciting.
Is it Into is the first
one. It's Across the Spider-Verse. Spider-Verse.
I still think the names are too similar, but it's probably my favourite Spider-Man movie.
Me too.
And they're making a sequel that looks almost as awesome, or maybe more awesome. Who knows?
Could be the Paddington 2 of superhero animated sequels.
Let's hope so. And on from that is our news for the next year. So strap in and get excited. And I think with that, we're going to move it to our, I don't want to call it awards because no one's getting an actual award, but our picks for our favourite movies of the year. So first off, or favourite and worst, to be fair. First off, I think I'd like to ask you, Callum, what is the best film you've watched this year for the podcast that is in our new category?
For the brand spanking new movie, I've chosen quite a modest film. It's Ron Howard's 13 Lives. It really impressed me. And, I was umming and erring between this and Nope, but Nope just had a few too many niggly little flaws that just held it down a little bit, and still my weakest Jordan Peele film. But I admired that very much. So that was a close second, runner-up. But 13 Lives, I felt, was emotionally honest. Again, it wasn't perfect. Some of the acting was a little bit ropey. It told a story honestly and without flair, and which is Ron Howard's signature thing. When he's on form, he does so in a very unfussy way, not dissimilar to someone like Clint Eastwood. It's just very much tell the story. Don't let flashy kind of, overbearing editing and tricks overwhelm the story. He just told the story that needed to be told, and he did it from an ensemble point of view. He didn't do that thing that a lot of American filmmakers do when telling a story that takes place overseas that might have some Westerners involved. I think the example we used in the review was Argo, where a story that's in real life, the Canadians and the British Embassy and New Zealand Embassy did a lot of the work before the Americans even poked their nose into that story. It's now suddenly a movie about where Hollywood saves the day. Whereas this is a story where there are some English heroes, there are some Thai heroes, there are heroes all over that bloody map. And it was very good of someone like Ron Howard, who the impression I get is a very good man. Of course he would tell that story that way, because that's the way the story needed to be told. And he's a very humanist filmmaker when he's on form. So that's my favourite new film of that we watched for the podcast.
Interesting. Interestingly enough, That was on my list. I had a bit of a short list of 3, and you mentioned 2 of them there. And I didn't go for either of those 2 in the end. I went for, I don't know if it's either the obvious choice or the less obvious choice. I would like to preface that none of the films we've watched really like blew me away of the new films.
That was the same for me, because we're still fairly new. 15 episodes, 14 where we've watched movies, 13 of which where we've watched new movies. We didn't have a huge pile to select from, so next year it'll be a tougher battle.
Yeah, I think actually, ironically, the old movies, we've had a couple of 10 out of 10s, but I don't think we've had any 10 out of 10s on the new movies.
No, I don't think we had.
But I went for a genre movie that hit the nail on the head perfectly, that showed how to do a sequel perfectly, it's got my best actor of the year in it actually as well, but it may not be the person you're thinking when you hear the name of the film. It was Top Gun Maverick.
Interesting.
I think it really just worked.
Because I remember you being quite lukewarm on that film. I think you gave it a 6, didn't you?
No.
I don't think it was I think maybe...
It felt like an 8.
I think I gave it a 7. I think you gave it a 6. I'm pretty sure you did.
Interesting.
So it must have just kind of grew in your memory like a...
I have only seen it once and you've seen it 3 times. So, but yeah, no, it seemed to work. So I thought about 13 Lives, and then I thought... my question to myself was, am I too close to that story? Like, having lived in Thailand, and I was in China when it all happened, and I remember really watching it really intently, and I feel like and I've seen quite a few documentaries, things on it. So I was like, am I looking at this objectively? So I ruled that out.
Fair enough.
And I really love Nope as well. And I nearly said Nope, but I kind of thought 2 things. One, it was in our first ever podcast. I kind of didn't want to pick a movie from our first podcast, so I thought our third. And the other thing was, I still kind of think it's not Jordan Peele's best movie. So I felt weird picking it when it wasn't his best movie. Not that Top Gun's... possibly is John Krasinski, not Krasinski, however you say his name.
I forget.
Kozlowski?
Anyway,
him. It possibly is his best film. But yeah, anyway, I just thought it is a really good genre movie. I think it really worked. I think it is too long. The classic My Line. But yeah, no, I went for Top Gun Maverick. I just thought it ticked a lot of boxes. But that probably says a lot, that nothing blew me away enough that it was like me going, oh my God, I just really loved that film. And actually, I was looking through, because there's another question in this later, which is a film that we didn't review for the podcast that was our favourite. And I really struggled to find a movie this year that blew me away for that as well. Partially because maybe the first half of the year I didn't watch as many movies as I normally would, and partially because I don't think there was anything that really blew me away massively this year in general anyway. There's possibly 1 or 2 films I haven't seen that I think will, but yeah, anyway.
Well, interestingly, they're going for a big push for Top Gun Maverick to be one of the Best Picture contenders. It was nominated for a Golden Globe. I think it got a Critics' Choice nomination for Best Picture, and I think it's been picking up a few of the Association Awards.
I've also seen it quite high up at the end of the year review list. So when you look at like top 50 movies of the year for Time Out or Empire or whatever, it's been in the top 5 in a lot of those. I've seen it at number 1, number 2 in a few as well and stuff. So it obviously has some kudos.
It's clearly worked for people.
Yeah, and it made a lot of money.
Absolutely.
Not always a sign of quality, but it had legs. It didn't feel like it made it all in the first weekend. It kind of made it over a long period of time.
And there were sort of 2 movies that did that, one in a very modest way, one in a bananas huge. And the bananas huge one was, of course, Top Gun. And The Woman King worked in that way that it had a $19 million opening weekend, then a 12, and then so it took little steps down. Yeah. So there are a couple of films that lingered for older audiences, but not many.
Yeah, excellent. But no, that's our best new movies from the podcast. We will have a best new movies in general thing later.
We will.
Which I've cheated on. But anyway, what was your worst new movie that we reviewed for the podcast? I think we may have the same one on this, but I don't know what this is.
There was 2 contenders.
It's the same for me.
So the first one, I did think about putting Pinocchio, the Disney Plus one.
You thought the same too as me.
The problem with Pinocchio being on a worst list is that in the end, it's just a Disney Plus, throw the kids in front of it and then go off and do something else sort of film. So, we watched it because we did it for the podcast. It's not something that's infecting cinemas like a conscious disease. Exactly. With the film that did win that plaudits, it's a film that's so convinced of its own genius, so convinced that this is the business, this is top banana. Oh my God, this is Oscars ahoy, lads, and a Venice Film Festival. 16-minute standing ovation. So what? What doesn't get a 16-minute standing ovation at any of these film festivals? And that is Andrew Dominik's Blonde. I'll say that again because it's coughed right in it. So it's Andrew Dominik's Blonde. Atrocious film. Insulting. One on a filmmaking level, it's one of those films that use all the bag of tricks. They change from kind of shutter speeds and aspect ratio, and black and white to color, and it pulls this trick, and that's a fun CGI bit. Let's do that. It's so convinced. And Andrew Dominik, he's a talented guy. He made Chopper. He made Killing Them Softly. He's not a very prolific filmmaker, but he's made 4 films. That I'm aware of. I might be wrong there, but Chopper, Killing Them Softly, and The Assassination of Jesse James. 2 of those are fantastic. Killing Them Softly is flawed, but very interesting. I recommend it, and you'll like it. It's 90 minutes long, and this is just insulting. It's misogynistic. It treats Marilyn Monroe, this smart woman in Hollywood who had her demons, sure, but was not some battered little housewife who, was simpering and crying. And the things it has her do, the fiction it puts her in, just to kind of show, oh, look, this is what women in Hollywood have to put up with. Yes, that's true. We've seen that. We've heard the Me Too stories, the appalling behavior of men in Hollywood. But if it's so concerning for you, Andrew, you fucking hack, why not fictionalize it? Why run this woman's name through the mud to put her in things that never happened to her? Make a Marilyn Monroe proxy. That's what a talented filmmaker would do. Or, talented you were. I'm not so sure anymore. I'm not so sure you're not just a masochistic bag of tricks, kind of, war blimey, won't this look fun?
So I agree. Actually, I was going to say both for both movies. They were both the 2 that came to my mind. But my kind of thought process was Pinocchio was harmless fun. It was fucking awful, but it was harmless fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Blonde is just really rubbed me up the wrong way and really annoyed me. And the scene that really wound me up to no end was the JFK scene. And especially when I was reading about it all afterwards, and I was like, nothing even close to this ever happened, or from anyone can find any information close to something like that happening. There is a possibility that they may have both consensually slept together, but that's not even verified. And to kind of drag her name, someone who's dead, through the mud, and drag his name, someone who's dead, through the mud in such a way. I'm not saying that John F. Kennedy was a stand-up guy when it came to women, because he clearly wasn't. But it just, and the Kennedys in general. The whole thing left a bad taste in my mouth, and I wasn't a fan of it in any way, shape, or form.
It's just an ugly, ugly piece of filmmaking.
Exactly. So I think, Callum, it's your turn to ask me a couple questions now.
Yes. So let's start with, should we go for acting?
Or I was going to say, should we do the old movies, best and worst?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's flip it a little bit. Let's go for worst old film first, rather than best old film first.
Well, I was looking, and actually we picked films for the most part that I think we both liked so this was quite a hard category. There was one standout film.
I know what it's going to be.
One standout film that was so boring and so long and so poorly set designed and ugly and poorly acted and terrible script, and I nearly fell asleep in. And
what film would that be?
Is Speed Racer.
The film that was made so that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse could run. It walked so other films could run. And Scott Pilgrim.
Maybe I'm like, why? That's so not true. I will give it that there was some reasonable editing in certain points, but in a way that annoyed me. From a technical point of view, that was well done. Outside of that, though, the storyline was awful. The acting was awful. I just didn't like it. I mean,
even Roger Allam.
He's probably the best thing in it with his one speech he gets that he's never in it for the rest of the movie.
He isn't in it for much. I do love that story.
I hated the editing around that though. I hated like the spinning round and the way they did the background, and then the fact they had the stupid monkey and stupid young brother appearing.
That is certainly the weakest part of the film. I do love that story though. So I told this in the review, but there's something endearing about this. About Roger Allam, not about the film.
Okay.
It's that Roger Allam, of course, has had plenty of success. He's been on huge successful television shows in the UK. The Thick of It, but also Endeavour, which my mum is a big fan.
If anyone knows The Thick of It, he is Peter Mannion MP.
And of course, he's a theatrical actor. He's been, he's one of the highlights of the stage. If he's on the stage in London, in the West End, that's a show to see. But he always had this thing in the back of his head that he really wanted to be an Alan Rickman or Gary Oldman-esque villain actor in Hollywood. Sort of as that they started phasing that out though. So they don't. This was an outlier by having this type of English villain in the 2000s. They just kind of stopped doing that thing. But he always had this dream of being. So the first chance he gets, because he's done 2 Wachowski films, because he was also a villain in V for Vendetta. So he clearly...
V for Vendetta's Wachowski?
Written by, not directed by.
I think they wrote it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so clearly something about the Wachowskis and something about Roger Allam, they go, we want this guy. And of course he was very much like, you're going to give me a villain role? Yes. So in that
this
one
is my
speech...
big break, guys.
Exactly.
I'm going to try that cocaine.
So in that one big villain speech, every bit of scenery that comes between his teeth, he chews it. Every word here is kind of mercilessly kind of biting and gnawing, and every bit of dialogue that comes through. So, it's very plummy. It's like, this is my religion, boy. It's like you can, if you don't like that movie, that line delivery is a kind of one bright spark. If you don't like that movie, of course, as we all know, I went a bit mad talking about that movie. Yes. But it's a fun story. I like hearing how actors are a little bit human, and that's one of those cases like, I really wish... one thing I haven't fulfilled is that I want to be a Hollywood British villain actor yelling at Bruce Willis. And of course, he picked the wrong film to do it. But actually, in a way, he kind of picked the only film to do it. They weren't making those films anymore. And he just, yes, I'll do it. And every bit of dialogue is hammy. And, that's a sweet story. Even if you don't like the film.
So now you've taken another 3 minutes of the podcast off talking about Speed Racer. What is your worst film of the year?
So I'm going to preface this by saying not worst, just least good that I saw in 15 films?
Yeah, 14, I think.
14. No, I think it would be 16 with this one, because we did a podcast with 2 old films in it. The previous Christmas episode.
Oh yeah, true.
But so I liked this film more or less. I just had a lot of teeny tiny flaws that stopped it, held it back, and that's a futile and stupid gesture.
Interesting.
And I do have to preface that by saying it's not a bad film. I kind of enjoyed it overall, but I did give it a 5 out of 10, which I think was my lowest for a new film. For an old film. And it just had a few too many problems, Netflix budgetary stuff. It had ambitions that it couldn't aspire to, and then it sort of got trapped under the weight of biopics that it was trying to be subversive, and then it ended up becoming a biopic. And, it's not bad. It is not bad, but it's the least good that I saw.
I thought you might say the Cowboy Bebop remake.
Well, that was one of our new picks. It
was new.
Yeah,
you're right, actually.
It was our new pick. It had been out for a year.
Wow, yeah.
So, no.
True. No, I agree. I think that's a good one.
So should we go to the best old movie?
Yes. So I struggled with this one. I had 2 written down.
I didn't struggle at all.
And I know which one you've got, and that's one of the 2 I've got written down. So I think I'm going to go for the other one just for... What's the word? For
the sake of conversation.
For the sake of conversation, but I will agree with everything you say about what you're going to say. I might be wrong. You maybe not what you're going to say, but because I don't know what he says, but I'm fairly convinced it is. So I'm going to go for Sherpa,
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
which I think you gave 10 out of 10.
I did. I really liked it.
It's absolutely amazing documentary. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. It's on Netflix. It's about the Sherpas to take people up Mount Everest, and the particularly bad season in, I get the year right. It was one. I think it was 2014 when there was a big avalanche at the start of the season, and a large, I think 13 Sherpas were killed. And they cancelled the season effectively, but it's the story of leading up to that. And really interesting. The people that went to make a story about the Sherpas and ended up making a story about this horrible event. It really, really interesting. Not much more to say. I think excellent film. Go and watch it.
It was incredibly effective. And I can't say that I knew anything about it. I didn't even know that Sherpa was a type of person, an indigenous person. I assumed it was a job title. That was my ignorance. But I'm really glad I saw the film, and it opened my eyes to people and how they're mistreated, and how colonialism is still alive and well in the 21st century. And the man in that film, who's almost like a cartoon villain, he tells the crowd at one point, like, "Oh, if you go up that mountain, guys, these Sherpas, they'll break your legs. They will. It's like, so infuriating, but also enlightening documentary, and also kind of made on the fly. The documentary filmmaker just wanted to make a film about the Sherpas' day-to-day lives and this horrible tragedy, and she just happened to be there at the time. And it ended up, I think it was nominated for a BAFTA for Best Documentary, and she's gone on to make several travel documentaries. I think that's her speciality. Several of which have been narrated by Willem Dafoe. Yeah.
This one's not.
No, it's not. It's not.
And Callum, what is your best old movie?
Well, it is Paddington 2.
That really old movie.
A really old movie from 2017, I want to say. Or, no, it was 18. Oh, it is in that neighborhood.
17.
Okay.
17.
It's just perfect. It's a perfect film. I've watched it many times. I'll watch it many more. Every part of it is charming. Every part of it is funny. It's kinetic. It's light. It works as children's entertainment, but also works for entertainment for everyone. There's very few jokes that are aimed just at dad or just at mum, which is usually what they do. Bit for dad, bit for mum, bit of romance, bit of this, bit of action. It's a old-fashioned 4-quadrant blockbuster that just works for everyone. It's perfect.
Yep, I agree. The best rated movie of all time, and deservingly so. Excellent. So now let's move on to the actors and actresses. We've only done this for the new movies. I don't know why.
I think it's just due to brevity and limits. Yeah. So it is unfortunately a bias, but in modern filmmaking, especially Western filmmaking, there's fewer parts for women, especially fewer parts for older women. Mm-hmm. And because we've only watched 15 films, when I was looking through them to make a potential Best Supporting Actress, I realised I didn't have a Best Supporting, and so that's why.
So we've actually, that's the previous thing. That's still for the new movies. We've just decided to do a Best Actress and a Best Actor, and a Worst Actor and a Worst Actress, so kind of merged it. They're only from the new films, just for a bit of brevity. But yeah, that is.
He did it again, folks.
That's how I did it.
That's what happens when people talk with their hands.
Well,
we're both hand talkers, actually. We're both gesticulating.
You're gesticulating, wow. Anyway, but yeah, and then the other question was, well, do we just do Best Actor and have combined actress and actor? But again, I thought it was better to guarantee one from each gender. So
absolutely.
So not to be overly complicated, but that's why we've gone down that route. So Callum, who is your best actor from a new movie?
Well, I did ponder this a bit because there's quite a few good actors roaming around there. But in the end, I went for someone whose work was quite subtle. Very low key in quite a big genre film. So I went for Daniel Kaluuya in Nope, because I felt like whereas the sister role played by Kiki Palmer is very big, she gets kind of the big shouty kind of hand waving moments in this place where we wave our hands a lot. He was very much very kind of to the point where he was looking at the floor, and his character had obviously some sort of crippling shyness, and it goes into a little bit of that where she went off and did her thing. He was the one that stayed at home on the farm helping his dad before his dad tragically got killed by the raining debris of the what have you that starts the Nope, because still not spoiling it. And so it's got a great inner life, this performance. It's very, on the surface, seems very simple. Just nope. He's the one that sort of says that a few times. Very much not man of very little words, but his eyes say so much, and his body language and how stiff it is. He's the one that has to sort of kind of navigate through this crazy going on in as calm a manner as possible. And it's very nuanced, and he's a very talented actor.
So interesting, that was I almost did as mine Daniel Kaluuya and Stephen Yen as a joint winner. And then I didn't. I decided to go a different direction. But that, very, very close. If I'd stopped my thought process one dot earlier, I might have chosen that. But I went for Glenn Powell in Top Gun Maverick.
Oh, yes, he's excellent.
I think he's the best thing in it. I think he's really good fun. I think, again, he kind of plays with what, again, is not a massive part, but it's big enough. I think he works really well. I think he's far more interesting than Miles Teller.
Yes, I'd agree.
And I know. I think he probably won't get many kind of lists and things. And I thought it'd be nice to give a shout out to someone who a bit further down the call sheet maybe, but who I think deserves it.
Yes, I think so. He's kind of one of those guys that straddles between being a character actor and being a movie star, or a potential movie star. He's not there yet,
isn't he?
He's got the look of a movie star, but he might be a bit too interesting to be a movie star. He might end up becoming someone like Ethan Hawke.
I was thinking maybe Arnie Hammer pre-problems.
What have you. Yes, absolutely. That he was another person who was just a little bit too interesting to be pigeonholed as a movie star, but he was a bit too handsome to be a character actor, so he never got the roles. But
even
sometimes
if they did try.
They did. Oh, bloody hell, did they try? And just audiences went, we don't want him. Stop sending us Armie Hammer. The box office says no. But Glenn Powell he could potentially be someone like Ethan Hawke or Kevin Bacon, who have managed to do that thing. And especially Ethan Hawke, because he's writing or co-writing and starring in a film directed by Richard Linklater. So it might be that Richard Linklater has chosen him to be his new boy. And he was in that one that Richard Linklater made, the film that name escapes me. It's set in college in the 1980s. Everybody Wants Some, I think it's called. And he also had a small role in Apollo 10 and a half. Mm-hmm. So he's clearly being groomed as Richard Linklater's new boy. Do not take that how that sounds. But Richard Linklater sees something in him, sees something enough to write a film with him. Who's he done that with before? Well, it's Ethan Hawke. So it could be that he's going for that sort of movie star, character actor, Ethan Hawke bridge. It's a very hard thing to navigate.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I agree. What about your best actress from a new movie?
Well, the best actress from a new movie. And this is again, kind of tough. And again, it's because there is a bias. There are fewer parts, written for older women, but also there are fewer parts leading roles written for, just women in general. And I actually took a performance that is flawed. I don't think it's perfect. And she's trying so hard in a real horrible film. So the worst film of the year was Blonde. And I thought Ana de Armas did everything she could to salvage that film. And in a way, I'm more impressed that an actress, given such poor material, was able to navigate her way through. There is something about her that's very megastar, movie star wattage, even if she can't quite shake her accent, her Cuban accent. So she plays Marilyn with a slight Cuban accent. She did everything she could. She's really, really trying in that movie. And I thought she was good in the role. Maybe not good enough to give sort of an award if we were doing a larger year in film, like next year when we've watched dozens of films. In a year when we've only seen 14 new things, though, I found myself going, well, congratulations, Jesus Christ, what did you have to work with? You pulled it somehow. You pulled it a rabbit out of that hat, and so for that, I'm giving it to Ana de Armas.
Do you know what? So interesting enough, in my head, she was straddled between. I almost put her as my best actress at one point, but I also almost put her as my worst actress at one point.
I know what you mean. I do know what you mean.
Because I feel like she was still quite I think she did a very good job with Bad Material, and I think at moments she has the right glint in her eye and stuff. But overall, I just think she was maybe slightly miscast. I don't know, but then I also think she did a good job. So that was a toss up. But it's not her. I went for my best actress. You've mentioned her already. I went for Keke Palmer in Nope.
Oh yes,
I really enjoyed the kind of. I thought she had kind of the more over the top. Daniel Kaluuya. One of the reasons I didn't go for Daniel and Steven Yeun kind of as a mix was because I knew I was doing Keke for Nope. So
you didn't want to overwhelm.
Yeah, I didn't want to be like nope. But I put her down as my best actress. I thought she did incredibly well in that role. I thought it was a bit silly and over the top, but I think she did I really enjoyed it.
She's incredibly cool in that film.
She is very cool.
And when it becomes...
She's a cool person.
She is. She recently was on Saturday Night Live and she was very funny.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was very, very good.
She gets to do the Akira slide. And film people will know what I mean. I won't say anything more, but she gets to do it. And she pulls it off. She doesn't make it look silly.
Good.
Because you can't do that with a real bike.
Anyway, I think that is time for an ad break. And welcome back to the Untitled Film Podcast.
Review of the year.
With Johnny and Dog Brains Video.
What? Him? We couldn't even pitch his voice right.
Well, he's replacing you. I just have to record him remotely. Anyway.
So we're on to our worst actors of the year.
Indeed. And my worst actor of the year.
Drum roll, please.
Tom Hanks in Pinocchio.
Yeah, I nearly went for that.
It pains me to say it.
I know.
I love Tom Hanks so much.
I know.
But he does once in a blue moon do a stinker like Larry Crowne and things. And this was a stinker. The accent was terrible. The flailing arms was terrible. It was phoned in. It was fucking awful. He was given no material to play with. He was given ridiculously stupid costumes. But it was a bad performance. And there's no way out of that.
Yes. No, you're absolutely right. I nearly went for that. But I thought that you might go for it. So I went for, like you did earlier, I went for a second choice for my worst. Because I knew that this might get missed. Because I think this movie's been a bit forgotten about. Tom Felton in Save the Cinema. If you want to talk bad accents... Oh, I'm from Wales, I am. Oh, but it slips out sometimes, and I'm not from Wales. Oh, but now I am again.
It's a bit Postman Pat, isn't it?
I mean, Postman Pat, nothing. It's like he's doing, like when children used to do their bad Pakistani accents after, in the early 2000s, after, everything that happened. It's like that. It's like nothing on earth. And... it's not a great role in the first place, but it's a simple, no-brainer Brit flick. Like, a moderately talented actor should have been able to do this,
I just thought the film is so inoffensive that it didn't bother me that much, but it is bad. Like, there's no way around
exactly.
it.
I mean, the film is inoffensive.
Again, he's not given a huge amount of work with
he's
this.
Not. But the fact is that a character like this in a movie like this is such a blank slate because it's a inspirational Brit flick, which we make a dime a dozen. Even the bad ones are kind of like there's a formula to them. How can you mess up that formula?
But the other side of the coin is how did you want him to play it? I mean, did you want him to like chew the scenery and overact?
I wanted him to be a bit better. I wanted him to do a convincing Welsh accent.
Or maybe don't bother with the Welsh accent and just say, I've moved here from
Brighton, or something, anything. It does. I mean, I know it's based on a true story and he's playing a real person, but who cares? No one except the people in that Welsh village care.
Part of me wonders about if it's a if it's even his fault, should he have been cast in that role? Is that not the mistake of
They just went
casting
for it
people?
because he was a name, and actually everyone in that cast, because that's a surprisingly starry cast. Even the ones I didn't recognize, like, oh, she's been in a syndicated American television show. He's been in a syndicate. Bloody others, loads of Welsh people running around Hollywood, aren't there? Even the ones like aren't Michael Sheen or Matthew Rhys famous. Yeah, there seems to be a lot of them. But yeah, no, he something about him just bugged me.
Fair enough.
So I want to hear your worst.
I actually struggled with my worst actress.
Yeah, same.
I did, partially because actually, unfortunately, there's not many kind of like shiningly big roles, and most of the shiningly big roles in the movies we watch that were given to women, they seem to grasp with both hands and do a very good job on.
Exactly.
So I'm going for what feels a bit like low-hanging fruit, and I feel unfair. And I don't necessarily think if it's her fault. I think maybe she was just horrendously miscast. But it's Lindsay Lohan in Falling for Christmas, because she doesn't suit it. She just doesn't really work in the role, and she doesn't feel like she's putting a huge amount of effort in.
She's incredibly miscast.
Yeah, you get, when you look back at Lindsay Lohan's repartee, you had Lindsay Lohan films where she was putting a lot of effort in, like Mean Girls, and then you had her showing up as a TV appearance in something, not really caring, and it felt like she was doing that for the film.
Yeah,
I didn't feel like she particularly cared about being there, and she was miscast, and that's not her fault.
No, not at all. And I'm hoping what this is, because she's a talented woman, and many of my favourite teen movies of that era are hers. You know, she was a great talent, and what I'm hoping is that she gets a sort of Robert Downey Jr.-esque comeback. But I think she needs something quirky and edgy, which I think she'll suit. In the same way that Robert Downey Jr. was never meant to be the lead heartthrob in Ally McBeal, but he was. And he's fine doing it, but he's just not built for that. He's built for being a bit weirder. And I think her too, if she gets a slightly dark, world-weary part, I think she'll do it really well. But I hope that what this is, though, is that it's a sign that because she's now showing up in a Netflix movie, she's back on the hiring list. Exactly. So hopefully this is a sign of good things rather than of bad things.
I mean, simply put, she's probably insurable again.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
So, which is very good news, and I hope to see her in something interesting next year. But hopefully. This was not the film. And
my actress was a little bit tricky as well. And again, it's low hanging fruit, but it's more of a case of, as with my worst old film. This is a case of not bad, just least good. Thank you. Sorry, I said thank you because he's pouring me some wine. For people in podcast land, you can hear it. Samantha Morton in Save the Cinema, there was something weirdly baffling, but I think it was a character thing, not an actress thing. She's doing what she can with a character who makes just the bizarrest decisions to bolt herself into the cinema. And then when her husband brings up quite a reasonable, objection, if they bulldoze this place, there'll be a lot of jobs in this community. And I don't think it's ever said exactly what his job is, but it's suggested that he'll be whatever, carpenter, builder, plasterer, something, whatever job that is brought in by the building of this new I think it was a shopping mall, wasn't it, to bulldoze this cinema. Their lives will be a little bit better off because her husband will get some work. And she just goes, no. And that's not Samantha Morton's fault at all. But how do you deliver that dialogue? So I think what she's doing is she's going, cool, blimey, this is shit, but it's fitted perfectly with my summer holiday, and I could use an extra however much she gets paid for it. So she does it almost like, I'm going to play this part like I'm a fucking nutter, like I'm just round the bend, off the twist. I'm going to make decisions that no human would make, and
she doesn't make the decisions, though. The script makes the decisions. The script
makes the decisions, but she plays them in a slightly manic way, and I'm wondering how much is that her deciding, I'm going to have fun with this. It's rubbish. I'm going to have fun with it. So it's not bad. It's just least good because she's trying to navigate. You can see the cogs whirring in her head going, this is rubbish. Should I? Yeah, I'm going to have fun with this. I'm going to choose some scenery. So it was hard, again, with what 15, 14 films, something like that.
Yeah,
it was really tough, and it was.
I think as well, if you'd have asked me to find the second worst actor, I might have had to find a couple, but there wasn't like a list of in the stuff we watched. There wasn't many people who were like outright bad. You're going, oh my God, why have they got this role? And again, I don't necessarily think I agree with you that I would have put her as my worst, but it was a nothing role that she did as much as she could do with, but there wasn't a huge amount to do with it. But yeah.
And hopefully next year we'll be able to come up with something a bit more kind of actually, God, that was awful, that performance. What was that about?
Yeah. Excellent. Moving on, though, we wanted to broaden it a little bit and talk about something that we hadn't seen for the podcast, something we'd seen in general. Obviously, we started this podcast in, I want to say,
October?
August. No, it was earlier than that. It was before we went to Budapest.
Was it?
It must have been kind of.
Oh, it was 14
August,
episodes.
September.
So that's 3 months. So yeah, September, I think.
Late August, early September kind of time. And obviously, there's a lot of films to watch before then. There's stuff we watched not for the show. There's TV shows we watched. So we just wanted to give a shout out each to something that we didn't do for the podcast, be it film or TV show.
We also have lives, so we do watch films for fun.
We do, yeah. And Callum, what was your thing that was not for the podcast?
Can I mention two? Or am I rigidly bound to one?
No, you can mention two. I think I know what two it's going to be.
Okay, so there were two films that I thought were excellent, and I think it's a shame that we didn't get to talk about them. One we almost did. The other, it wasn't really on our radar. There was nothing to compare it to. It was too old by the time that it hit streaming. So by the points then it was available for both of us to see, it was no longer a new film, nor was it old enough to be an old film. And the first one is Everything Everywhere All at Once. I thought it was moving, it was clever, it was kinetic, it had scenes that were right out of a Hong Kong kung fu movie, and then it would bring in Nietzschean philosophy, and it never felt like those things were at odds. The visual style is incredible. Michelle Yeoh is incredible. It's just everything down the line, and it's one of the favourites this year, the award season thus far, of course. And I think the best supporting actor choice is pretty much locked. I can't remember his name, but he was a child actor. He was in this second Indiana Jones movie, Short Round. He's now an adult. He hasn't acted for something like 15 years, and now he's back, and he's tipped for the favourite to be the best supporting actor, and he deserves it. He's excellent, and I hope that everyone will eventually get to see it. I made sure that my brother watched it, who's living up in Durham, and then we had a chat after it was done. And so it's just a film I like sharing with people. And my second choice is The Banshees of Inisherin.
I should have written these down, so I knew these were the two you were going to say. I haven't seen either of them for one reason or another.
We almost did watch this for the podcast because we just couldn't schedule it. And we were going to schedule it with Once, the Irish movie that was sort of the indie favourite of 2005 or 6, I want to say. And it has the guy who is called the Chris Martin of Ireland. And Johnny watched the trailer and he said, I think this is going to really annoy me. So that is a lost episode that could have been really funny because I wanted to see how he would react to Once, which I'm sort of ambivalent, indifferent
to. Maybe when the Banshees goes onto streaming platform.
I would like that, hopefully, because I'm indifferent to that movie. It's a film I loved as a teenager that now I see it as a fine enough indie movie that broke out. But The Banshees of Inisherin was just incredible. It was one of the best screenplays of the year. It's the best Martin McDonagh film. Colin Farrell continues to show that he is this generation's best actor. It's just that people haven't started speaking of him in those terms. Everybody's always liked him. But it's only been now that people have gone, oh yeah, he is the best, isn't he? And it's just, everything about it works. I didn't expect it to be as moving as it was because the trailers only show you the Father Ted-esque comedy of it. But it gets dark, it gets interesting, it gets introspective. Again, with Everything Everywhere All at Once, it gets very philosophical. It's just two incredibly well-scripted movies. And it shows that original cinema, as much as people tell you that it's all superhero flicks nowadays, there are some original films occasionally struggling through, and these are two of them.
Yeah, no, I've both heard amazing things about both on my list. Nearly watched everything everywhere all at once on a plane recently, and thought, you know what, I'm going to put them in my back pocket, but not on a plane, to watch it on a big screen and with proper sound and
Probably
stuff.
a good idea.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And I really want to see the Banshees. I love In Bruges, like Seven Psychopaths. So no, and I hear it's his best. So no, excited for those. I've gone a little bit a different way. Obviously, on this podcast, we don't just do films. We do documentaries, and we also do TV series. And because you did two, I'm going to do two.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to do the one that the TV series that I wanted to give a big shout out to first is Severance, which is, have you watched it yet?
I have.
A fucking masterpiece from start to finish. It's beautifully shot, beautifully acted, beautifully engrossing. It's by far the best thing Apple TV Plus has done, and I would say, in fairness to Apple TV, they've had some pretty good things of late, like Ted Lasso and etc.
I was a big fan of Servant.
Yeah, and I've forgotten its name. The one with a really long name with the guys from Always Sunny, Mythic Quest.
Oh, yes, Mythic Quest. I think most people just call it...
Bumpety
most people just call it Mythic Quest.
I've just enjoyed watching Loot on there as well. So no, I will also give them Best Streaming Service of the Year. Although Disney Plus is up there. And my second one is, despite the fact it got some mixed, not reviews, it got some people whinging about some of the tools used in production, but I really enjoyed Roadrunner, about Anthony Bourdain. I thought it was really beautifully, the new bits and the interviews are beautifully shot. Thought it told the story very well. He's someone I'm incredibly interested in and have read all his books, but also, actually, I've listened to a lot of his books as well, because he reads them, and it's amazing to listen to his audiobooks because he's got such a way with words. But also, I've read a lot of books being on the crew and stuff, and it did a very good job of telling that story, I believe. And yeah, it was heart-wrenching. Also has a bomb soundtrack. Like, it is so good. It's been on repeat all year for me. So yeah, they're the two that I would like to give a shout out to.
And hopefully everybody listening, all 25 of you, will enjoy those recommendations.
Absolutely. So I think what we wanted to do to finish this episode is to tease a little bit of what we've got coming up in 2023. Fuck me, 2023. When does that come from?
I mean, I'm still not over.
Missing years, I suppose.
2020, it kind of just didn't happen.
21 was a bit of a weird one as well.
Yeah.
22 feels like a proper year for finally, after 18 months of madness. No. Fuck COVID. Yeah, but no. So for 2023, I suspect it's going to be a very good year, apart from maybe a recession, but we won't talk about that. Hopefully, this podcast will be recession-proof and will stay at £0 and 0 pence. So yeah, you'll have maybe more time to listen to it when you have less time to buy beer, like I like to do. But parking all that, we've got some ideas that we're going to be talking about in the next few weeks. One of the first episodes we are going to do next year is a true crime episode.
Yes, we've been talking about this one for a little bit, because we were going to do it several weeks ago, and
we postponed it to do some Christmassy stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But we are going to come straight into the new year with true crime, and we're going to be watching 2 true crime TV series, one of which is an OG of the genre, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. We don't give too much away at this stage, but yeah, great series. Secondly, we're going to do an anime TV series episode. I haven't discussed this with you, but I really want to do Death Note as the old show.
Yeah, sure.
And we need to find something new to go with it.
Good fun. I might ask, my brother is a big sort of anime TV show fan. He keeps up to date with all this stuff. He keeps badgering me over. So, as bad technologically as I am, he is way worse. We still talk over email. Because he doesn't have a smartphone of any kind, and he's probably never going to get one. So it's quite cute. But it's.
So how does he listen to our podcast?
I send him the links directly, and he kind of, he click, he does it that way rather than subscribing.
Okay. Shout out to Rory.
Yes.
Hi, Rory.
He's been asking me to watch. I think it's called Chainsaw Head, something like that, or something Chainsaw.
I've seen
it's the thing.
I've seen like a picture of it.
It's the thing, but it's so it could be the one for the new one, but I'm sure he'll also give us other suggestions. And also, this will be the first time we've done a anime television show, because previously we've only done 2 adaptations, Western adaptations at that, of anime shows. We did Speed Racer and we did Cowboy Bebop, both of which were the remakes.
And then we've had a couple of anime movies. We had Whisper of the Heart, and did we have another one?
No, I think that might be it.
So yeah, so maybe do a little bit more of that. I'd also like to do some international movies.
Yes, we should.
Chongqing Mansions, I want to pair with something, I don't know what, because not Chongqing Mansions, Chongqing Express. Chongqing Mansions is the building. Which is anything by Wong Kar-wai is always good.
Oh, I'm sure we could find something. I mean, Hong Kong cinema is forever expanding. Also, South Korean cinema, we could do something there.
Exactly.
I mean, there are endless countries.
South Asian or something even.
There are endless countries that we could pick from, all of which have interesting cinema.
So yeah, some more international cinema. And also in general, we're talking about doing some more TV series next year to mix in there with the movies.
I'd like to do some more genre cinema. One thing I noticed we didn't do is, for the entire month of October, there were no horror films talked about.
No, we didn't. Well, I think because we did our first episode was horror, wasn't it?
And in 2021, there were a bunch of really interesting ones to come out. Sorry, 2021? 2022. There was X and Smile and a whole load of them that not all of them are perfect, apparently. To be honest, I haven't actually seen any of them. And, this from a horror fan, there's just been quite a few other stuff to watch. Barbarian apparently is the one to watch, so it's one to catch up with. But next year, I'd like to do some.
Absolutely. So no, we have got lots of exciting plans. So stay tuned here at the Callum and Johnny Film Podcast, or whatever we're called.
Close enough.
It's the Untitled Film Podcast with Callum and Johnny. Follow us on the Instagrams and the internet.
So that's Untitled Film Podcast, all one word.
And please share this far and wide. Tell people about us. We're trying to, now we think, you guys may disagree, but now we think we've got a bit of a footing in this. We're trying to build our audience. And in doing so, hopefully we can continue to afford to do this in the long run. Once we can maybe start making a small income to cover technical expenses and things.
That would be nice.
Absolutely.
And also, I think we should take this opportunity to say thank you to Rob Hardstone, who has been doing all of the sound mixing and editing and making us sound beautiful and wonderful and making us sound rich and like we know what we're doing. Because if you listen to some of those first episodes where it wasn't Rob doing those, there's mixed results there.
Yeah, there's definitely some issues with how would I describe it? There's definitely some issues with audio levels, should we say? So no,
he's a hero,
you, Rob. And yeah, we are planning on, and that is the other thing for next year. We have some more guests that want to come on the podcast.
Yes.
And I believe Rob wants to be one at some point. There's one that I haven't told you about, which I will tell you about in a minute.
Okay.
And you've got one lined up as well, I believe.
Yes, I have a friend from the United States who wants to be involved.
So we have some guests as well. So hope you guys enjoyed a couple of weeks back with Dog Brain. And yeah, going forward, we're going to try and have some more. So keep tuned. Thank you for listening, everyone who's listened this year. And please, as I say, share far and wide.
I wish your phone would stop beeping during the outro.
I know.
But it's been lovely to do this, guys, because it's very fun. We like talking movies.
And yeah, if anyone ever wants to go to the pub and talk about movies, you're more than welcome. Have a happy new year again, and cheers, Callum.
Cheers. That was slightly better.
I was really wanting it to sound like ding. I think you're holding it too light. Should we just try this? It's better. Cheers, everyone, and a happy new year. Bye.